Zoomtopia. Just love what the company's doing with AI. Just
Yes.
getting over. But they brought out some offerings that were like, that's interesting.
Right. Yeah. So this is it. This one, Zoomtopia was really, it was very, I love events where I get to talk to customers because you really get that other kind of dimension of like, what is it like being a customer?
The grand purifier between
Yeah.
analyst and tech vendor, right? It's the purifier.
Yes. And so I love hearing from customers. It's nice to kind of just mingle with them. And I mean, of course, I'm going to listen to the ones they put on stage, but it's the ones you meet at like the happy hour or
Yeah.
walking through the hall or going, back in the elevator to the hotel, but they start to talk about it. Um, so they made a couple of announcements, but what I think is actually kind of more important is they didn't make a ton of announcements. And I have not yet had the chance to distill all of my thoughts, at least not publicly. I mean, while I was there, I had many one-on-ones with the executive team, sat on a couple of panels. So I've had my feedback sessions, but I do like to break down the public insights at some point, which I will do in the next couple of days. But I met a guy there who he's a consultant and does his everything communications. And he wrote a really interesting article, and I linked it in the show notes because basically what he said was that one of their really big branding issues, and this is I gave this feedback as well, is that everyone knows Zoom from video conferencing. And that's the thing that they're known for. It's the thing that people have experienced first and that they've experienced best. But now they have so much more. They have phones, contact centers, events platform. They have all these different things. And there was kind of this like sort of unspoken theme at Zoomtopia, which Eric, CEO, came running across the stage going Zoom, and then went Zoom because all these O's in the Zoom now stand for like other applications within the Zoom platform.
Right.
But the one thing that this guy, Dave Tushek, he pointed out in his write-up of it was that maybe they didn't shout it loud enough. And I think this is kind of one of their issues is that it they do have so many other offerings. And the reason why they have those offerings is because their customers asked for them.
Yeah.
But unless you're a customer, you may not know so much about those other offerings. So rather than at Zoomtopia just announce a bunch of different things, they did make a couple of announcements, which we'll get to. They're really kind of honing in on what they're doing best in those things. And they're saying, we're really like solidifying what we're doing in the contact center with AI and with companion AI. We're solidifying what we're doing in events with adding these hybrid experiences. And then they showed it at the event. They had the QR code up on the screen, and people in the audience could interact with the people who were virtual. And so they have all these experiences that they're augmenting and that they're highlighting, but they're not like screaming like new, 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 which is good because there's a lot of kind of work, like we've talked about this before. The pandemic took roadmaps and like stretched them like this and just went like in 3 years, companies had to ship what they or in 3 months, company had to ship what they probably would have done in 3 years.
Yeah.
So now everybody's taking their roadmap horizontally and they're filling it out. And they're saying, well, we got this wrong, or people use this more, and now we're going to infuse AI into this to make it even easier. So there's so much going on there. So they just introduced this AI companion, which we've used a lot with the summaries. I mean, their summaries are brilliant. They're so good.
So good.
I actually told the story about how I missed a meeting with you the other day and you sent me that, and I didn't have to even fill in the blanks. It was like normally I would have to be like, I think what they're trying to say here is it's this, but the AI doesn't always get it right, but they're really good. And so they didn't go, all splashy with a bunch of new announcements. They did make, one kind of their main announcement, which is this Zoom Docs. I think Zoom Docs is going to confuse some people. It definitely confused some people. I saw like the Washington Post headline was like, Zoom introduced Google Docs rival. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
you got it wrong.
Exactly.
Not at all. But that's not a Washington Post problem. That's a Zoom problem. If you can't explain it in a quick press release or a quick briefing and people still don't get it, you're not there yet. So I see what they're trying to do. It's really just this kind of like module workspace. It's like it's a wiki, it's work management, it's all within the Zoom platform. And what they're doing is they're answering to what customers want is they want to stay on the platform and collaborate. It's not like some big complicated thing, but it's also not just a doc. What they're trying to do is get away from this 8.5, 11 piece of paper, but it sounds like they're just inserting an 8.5, 11 piece of paper inside of your platform. That's not what anybody wants. So really, they just need to kind of like, I don't know, solidify that message, kind of figure out what they want that to be. But really, it's a workspace. Um, and then some other Zoom AI companions with more features coming soon. But overall, it was a really good event. Um, Small enough to have kind of some intimate time with the executives, really hear where they're coming from. They just did their, so finalized their WorkVivo integration. WorkVivo is their employee experience management platform. I got to see it in action. Like the Virgin Group just launched, they have an incredible experience. This thing, like if you look at it, you might think like, oh, it's basically it's a Facebook for, and nobody likes the word intranet, but because nobody likes intranets. But this is like a completely different thing. And if you're a Zoom customer, it can live within your Zoom environment. If you're a separate WorkVivo customer, you can use it within the app. You can kind of decide how you want to use it. The way that it's branded, some companies may completely like, it's not traditionally white labeled, but basically take over on the branding. Some companies, it's completely. They started as a little startup in Ireland. By the way, they were first with the Vivo name, so Microsoft Viva. It is not a copycat of Viva. So WorkVivo has been around for like 10 years, and I think Viva's been, I don't know, 4 or 5. So yeah, it was some good information. They have a way to go on figuring out how to communicate all the things that they do. And it kind of struck me as, who does this really well is Zoho. Zoho is a lot of things to a lot of people, and
Right.
you may only use 20% of it, but you know what else they have. And you know what's there because it's right there in your platform. I only use a couple of the Zoho products, but I know exactly what else they have because it's right there. And I know kind of what the functionality is of it. But they've managed to keep that under this one Zoho brand that I think Zoho users really understand. So I think, there's a little ways to get there, but if they're not careful, the Zoom is going to be really long. So they got to figure out how to like more concisely tell that story. But
So strategically, the company is in a predicament in that video is rapidly becoming a feature
mhm,
rather than a product, and they recognize this. And
yes,
everybody is building a platform who's anybody, right?
mhm,
Salesforce, Google, Microsoft, and you have to, as a public company, you have to show growth, and you can vertically integrate, you can horizontally integrate. And therefore, I think we got to Docs. I think Docs is the wrong name. I think Workspace is the right name.
yeah,
And companies like Box, they have workspaces that aren't trying to pretend to be a replacement for Google Docs or Microsoft Word.
right,
But I understand and I feel their pain here. And I think potentially one premise is our AI is so good, you're going to want to come and use it. I am so impressed with Zoom AI Companion. I can't even tell you. It's like the first B2B generative AI that has worked
yeah,
aside from Complete My Sentence and Gmail,
yeah,
and it's incredible. And if I'm on a call, with you or the team or a client and on Zoom, and I can just dump a bunch of stuff into a workspace and start typing it out, text, images, stuff like that. And I know it's not a whiteboard, but I think that's what I might use this for. So strategically, I
right,
don't think I have a choice. To
yeah,
grow, they have to do something. I mean, what else are they going to do? Get into devices
yeah,
that have 30 points of margin
right,
versus SaaS at 50 to 70.
right.
Um, yeah, they have to do this, but
Yeah. And on the
yeah,
device side, their video and everything, it's so good that companies are building devices to work specifically with Zoom.
exactly. Zoom certified, right? Zoom Room certified, and
Yes.
and all the different certifications. And yeah, to my point, you can imagine the corporate strategy folks, or maybe it's Eric, right, with his chief product officer that I know you met with at the show.
Yes.
But I understand where they are. They have to listen. Simplifying while adding features is tough.
Yes.
Few companies have done it really well. I think Apple, but it's over a 20-year period where they increment and and things like that. And I think that's a good thing to adopt.